set during
Yeah, so we'll call the meeting order at 7:30. We have somebody, a Boy Scout that is going to lead a flag ceremony for us in lieu of, or Cub Scouts rather,
Flags all here, guys.
and Scouts.
Suck it in. Harley, are you live?
Yes.
Okay.
So, you guys,
Want to move the flag?
yeah.
Here.
So, do
Hold on a second. Let's
you
move
guys,
the
before we
flag.
start, do you want to introduce yourselves for everybody?
I am Evan. I'm 10 years old.
Oh, jeez, I said twice.
I'm Evan and I'm 10 years old.
Where do you go to school at?
I go to school at Melwick Elementary, a part of Riverside.
All right, great.
Do we want to put this in?
I'm William, and I go to Melrich Elementary in Riverside.
And how old are you?
9.
I'm Jen, and I go to Parkside Elementary School. I am 10 years old, about to be 11 in September, and I'm a Weevil.
Awesome.
My name is Jaden and I go to Perry Middle School and I'm 12 years old. I'm about to be 13 on April 7th.
And you want to just tell us a little what you guys are gonna do with us today?
Okay, so they're going to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're just kind of sitting in. They want to see how government works.
Okay.
And
Well, you picked a good meeting.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna join us for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If everyone could hold their pose so I could just get a picture.
Yeah, I want to get a picture of them and
Go
us.
back with hands up.
Yeah.
Your other hand.
There you go.
We can get a picture with all of us, Gabe.
Okay.
By the flag.
Yes. Perfect.
And then real quick, we'll have them come over and we'll stand in front of the flag if you want to get a picture with them for us. That'd be great. We'll smooth this. Just back here. Yeah.
Why don't you guys turn around over here?
Look at her over there, everybody.
Well, if I go that way, I go to Mike, so how do I turn over here?
Perfect.
They grow big in Perry, apparently.
Well, we'll sign it off to the football.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and happy early birthday.
Yeah.
No, April 7th, Friday.
They said September.
I thought he said September 2nd.
One did.
Yeah, is there enough?
Okay.
We can get more. Is there ones in the back still, Sean?
Please call the roll.
Chairman Chickanetti?
Present.
Trustee Hillier?
Present.
Trustee Pennock?
present.
Fiscal Officer Patriarcha?
Present.
Did you start the?
Yes.
Okay. Continuing the public hearing for zoning case 2023-0001-ZC proposed map amendment that proposes to amend FPUD zoning of 11 parcels, which consists of approximately 378 acres of land to be developed into a mixed-density residential development at 436 Casement Avenue. As Harley mentioned, we are still in heavy negotiations with the property owners and the developers. So at this point, we're not acting today. We're going to continue the public hearing again till our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from today, so the 18th
April 18th,
at 11
11 a.m.
a.m. So we don't know what action, if any, we'll take at that point. We'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks as the negotiations continue. But at this point, we're just going to continue. Do we need a vote to continue?
Yeah.
Motion. All right. So can I have a motion to continue?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the March 21, 2023 meeting.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Summary of the work session, please.
Tonight, NOPEC will be mailing out The re-enrollment papers will hit residents' mailboxes later this month. You'll be automatically re-enrolled if you were a former customer of NOPEC. If you'd like to opt out, you have to do that manually by either calling NOPEC directly or enrolling with a new company. Also, the digital version of the newsletter went out last week. It's our first edition. Will be followed by the printed version within the next 2 weeks. The digital one will be smaller and it will update most likely monthly. The printed version will now be going out twice a year instead of 4 times a year. Fire chief discussed locker room improvements at the station, the ISO inspection, which will be next week, some training updates, and the donation of the sign for Station 1. He donated it for all 3 stations, but he brought the one for one here tonight.
And real quick, he used the wood from the old barn that was next to Kuhar's on 84 to make these, and he donated them all to the 3 stations in Painesville Township. Go ahead, sir.
Service director discussed the winter 22-23 summary, which was close to average. ODOT assisted us with some drainage issues and the Beaver Dam removal recently, and the paving projects will begin during the month of April and May. And then planning and zoning discussed the casement development, which we already discussed, and Popeyes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any old business from the floor? Yes, just ask that you come up to the lectern and state your name and address for the record.
Mary Ellen Abel, 50 Barley Drive, Painesville Township, Ohio. I've lived in Painesville Township since the early 1980s. I did some digging. I noticed that, and I don't know how frequently, $4,000 was donated to the Fairport Harbor Senior Center. I don't know if that's a one-time, once a year, or what. But I calculated based on the census reporter figures. The population of Painesville Township is roughly 20,450 people. Approximately 30% of the population is 60 or older. Mathematically, that comes out to 6,135 people. So if you divide the 6,135 people that are 60 and older, essentially you donated 65 cents per person. Thank you.
I was going to address. So, just really quick before we get into, I'm sure there's going to be some old business regarding the proposed development. So before we get into that, I just want to mention I've received several questions on what the school's plans are, what they're doing to address this, if anything. What are we doing with the schools to address additional development? So we do have a couple of representatives from the school, and while this isn't a question and answer session for residents to ask the school board or the school's questions, so it is not that. So we're not going to field and do a lot of questions and answers, but I don't know if you could maybe give us an update on what's taken place, the discussions that have taken place since the bond issue failed for the new high school, for that portion to now. If you maybe some sort of update there on, has there been continued discussion or has it been a dead issue? Does the school need to do something regardless? I know there's been a lot of questions, so if
For the record, state your name.
Yeah, and for the record, you can state your name and address.
So yeah, I'll state my name first. Belinda Grassi, Riverside School Board. I live in Concord Township on 6815 Edinburgh Place.
And I'm Gary Platko. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Riverside Schools. I live in Menor and on Birdie Lane. So I know we were invited tonight just to kind of give an update on what the school district is doing. As we all know, the bond issue was not supported in May of 2022. The board has had ongoing discussions on what type of alternative plan looks like in the future, addressing facilities in all aspects, not just related to new development, but just the current condition of the facilities. The district hired what's called an owner's representative that was helping us with that process, come up with an alternative plan They came up with several different options that they presented to the Board of Education on February 2nd at a work session. Some of those options included building a new middle school, putting additions on our current existing facilities, doing renovations, maybe building an elementary school. There's a lot of different things, but obviously some of those larger projects would require a different tax levy bond issue if we were to pursue those, or we just use our current existing permanent improvement fund to either make additions or improvements to facilities as a whole. As far as enrollment, development like this obviously will increase our enrollment. In the state of Ohio, enrollment in most districts are declining, birth rates are down, but for Riverside, it's been pretty steady. We haven't really been decreasing or increasing. We've seen some larger developments with the Fairway Pines development came in. I know that's still ongoing. We had the Heisley Park Encore in Painesville City, which also goes to our district. That was 166 homes. Those have come to our district as well, which kind of has kept our enrollment pretty level, but we anticipate more growth because we know this development's coming. Concord Township, Girdle Road area, there's always development going in there. As a school district, we're required to educate every kid that comes to us. We can't turn anybody away, so we have to come up with creative solutions to address that. So we're still ongoing through those discussions, what an alternative facilities plan looks like. I think one of the things we looked at a lot is, can we get the 8th grade out of the high school, whether that's building an addition on Lamuth to get that out, opens up space at the high school. What do we do about elementary? So we're kind of working through those. So it's really, we don't really have any answers right now, but it's been ongoing discussion and planning. We want to make sure that if we do ask the community for an increase for some reason, that we do it right, and we be thoughtful with that.
So it sounds like, not to interrupt you, but give you a chance to catch your
Yeah.
breath for a minute. But so it sounds like, across the state and probably here, if we didn't have the additional development, enrollment would have dropped.
Right.
So the development that's taken place has kind of taken up that extra capacity that as numbers would have fallen. But then throughout Concord, Painesville Township, Leroy, that there is still more development coming. So whether or not this particular development happens now, there is other development out there, right? So what's taking place in Heisley Park area, Concord has kind of taken up that capacity. If those hadn't happened and this would have started, maybe there wouldn't have been capacity issues, but just the timing of when this development hit compared to other projects.
Right. So I would just like to say that I appreciate the fact that you guys invited us to come this evening. Development is a thing that we have no control over at the school district, right? We're just observers, I guess, at the end of the day when it comes to it, but we have to educate all the students. And we are a district that has 5 different communities, and they're all experiencing population growth right now. As we see, there's developments going up all over. The fact of the matter is that we look at property taxes from new development, and we are limited in what we'll actually be able to receive from new development because our property taxes are limited to what we passed, just because of House Bill 920. And so when we look at new kids coming in, we're already experiencing crunches in our elementary schools. I'm sure everybody's kind of aware of that. We built 2 new elementary schools. They wanted us to build for a smaller number of students, but we didn't do that. So proactively, we considered that when we built those schools. But we still have population growth. And so just being at the table and just being allowed to be here and hear information and having a collaboration to me as a board member is important for us, because we want to provide the best service that we can, obviously, to all our students, which then in turn helps you sell your homes at the end of the day, right? But,
they're not our homes.
Well,
I mean,
I get it.
right.
I get it.
I mean,
Right?
so,
They're not
but
yours.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we want to be able to provide the residents that live in this community with great service. And the schools, you don't control the schools, and we don't control the things that go on in the community. So I really do feel like we have to work together. One of the things that we've been doing at the Board of Education is, we are now undertaking a very large facility assessment with an outside entity. We've got a bid out right now to do that for us. And they're going to be coming in and actually looking at everything in our schools to help us determine as a board like where are the biggest priorities, because the community didn't like our plan, obviously. So we have to try and figure out what we want to do next. And I think that's going to come down to where's the money where does it have to be spent? Where can we get it? How much is all this going to cost? And what are our priorities as a board? What do we want to focus on? Are we going to try and focus on building more capacity at elementaries? Are we going to try and focus on the high schools first? Like, so it's just having these conversations and being aware of development and what's happening and how many kids that could be. Like, maybe we'll have to focus on elementaries. I don't know. We're going to wait for that cost data to come out. I don't really know how long that will take. Probably by fall we'll have that information. I would assume it's going to take them a while. But that's where we're at right now.
I think when we talked after the last meeting, I mentioned that, working with the developer, hopefully they could provide a phasing plan so you knew what type of housing was being built when, to know when
Right.
this new development might start generating kids in the district.
And with anything that we do at the school district, obviously it takes a really long time, right? So in order to be prepared for when those students start to attend our district, we have to start planning now. And so because we're doing that planning now, it makes sense for us to be here and having some.
And that's like when I came 2 weeks ago to present to you guys. I think we'll continue to do that as well. As we get some updates, I'll come again to present, to give you an update on where we're at, so that you guys know where things are going as the process, if it takes off, where we're at. So. And we'll get that timeline, and then that'll help you guys prepare even better once.
This is the biggest development that's going on, right?
Oh, sure.
Like there's development like this in Concord or Leroy or like any of the other communities that we serve. So it probably behooves us to at least hear information and share some information.
Sure. And for anybody that is either listening here or listening to our recording eventually, I mean, the school board does record their meetings as well. So if you want to learn more about what's going on there, you can always catch those. They're recorded. You can go in person if you'd like to. But.
Okay.
Anything else you want to?
No.
Maybe just from a financial perspective, since that's my main expertise. From obviously the development will increase some of our property tax revenue, not in a large scale, but because of inside millage and things like that. So we will receive additional tax dollars from those homes, but from like a state funding perspective, the state considers more of a wealthy district, and we're on what's called the 5% floor. So we don't get a lot of funding. So if we have an influx of enrollment, we don't really realize a lot of state funding. We're on a guarantee, so we probably will see minimal increase in state funding. So, just something to keep in mind. I know when we talked to Painesville City about the Heisley Park development, you're going to get more money because we have more kids. It's like the way our state funding works. We don't normally realize that from an enrollment perspective.
Sure.
Because we're considered wealthy because of property tax valuations.
And so from an operational standpoint, we don't get a whole lot of extra money. And if we want to do facility is a whole nother different type of funding, which then requires voter approval from 5 different communities. So it becomes a little tricky.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But we are in a financially strong position right now, so so we're in a good place where we don't plan on coming back to the voters for operating funds anytime in the next several years. Just based on our forecast that we update twice a year. From facilities perspective, though, if we decide to like a new construction, we do have a permanent improvement levy that generates about 2.5 to 2.6 million a year for the district. We use that for boiler replacements, school bus purchases, Chromebook purchases, things like that. But we've been accumulating some funds, knowing that we're going to do some improvements, and as we're working on that, we're getting ready to bid out a project for new secure entrances at all of our existing our Riverside campus, Lumuth Middle School, Buckeye, and Melridge. So that's what that funding's used for. But we do have funds that we've set aside for facilities, and we can also borrow against those funds if we needed to, because it's a continuous levy. We're allowed to borrow against that. So if we need to raise a larger amount to do something, we have that flexibility without going back for additional tax dollars from the community.
Great. Cool. And when's your next meeting, in case anybody wants to come and ask you guys questions, since we're not opening it up here?
Next Thursday, 7 o'clock.
Next Thursday, 7 o'clock at Riverside.
Special meeting, I don't think we normally have.
Do we have it? I don't know if we're having
We don't normally have
business.
public.
And then our
April 27th is our regular meeting that we have public comment.
April 27th.
It's 7 right?
It's 7
p.m.
p.m.
All right. All right.
So let me just add. So this, I know this development is large and it's going to impact the schools. We all get that. If we as a board turn down this plan from Sidley's as proposed, they want to build they're up to 1770, down to 1775 from the original ask. If we turn it down, they have two options. Well, more than two, but one of the options is they can go ahead and build per the zoning code the way it's written right now, and we can't stop them. And they will build 13 to 1400 homes. We can't stop them, and those will probably be single family homes, which then have more children. This development has a mixture of single family homes, townhomes, and then apartments, but half of the apartments are senior living, don't have children. So from a standpoint of what's going to impact Riverside more, I think it's going to be, my mind would tell me that this proposal would be more controlled because of the limit on it. So either way, it's not a good scenario, but either way they can build and we can't stop them. Ideally, it would stay a big open field and we would all be happier, but that's not the reality. So something is going to be built. It's either going to be 13 to 1400 homes or it's going to be whatever we come to and decide to negotiate with them. The other option they have, which is, it's a reality and it's not a threat, it's a reality, is they could, Painesville City has requested them to be annexed in the past and they said no. We've known that from the start, but if we turned it down and they wanted to go with Painesville City, well then Painesville City can do whatever they want and then we lose total control. They could put in whatever their zoning code allows. So, like ideally it's a vacant parcel of land, but that's not the reality. Property owners are going to want to make money on their property. So we're trying to work the best we can. We have you guys in our mind. And of course, with our community, we're trying to balance it, but at the same time, allow the process to play out. So, there's other wheels in motion here.
And to
Important thing
piggyback,
to point out too is with you see with the other properties that are annexed, Heisley Park and
They're still going to you.
Right.
So
So,
yeah.
You're still coming to you regardless who they belong to
and
or they're a part of.
to piggyback on Chuck's comment on the assisted or senior living and apartments, there's areas designated for 55 and older, empty nesters, ranches that hopefully won't have a student impact on the district. So rather than having all single family homes, the load on the district may be less with the proposed development based on housing types.
And
So.
one of the things that I think we're trying to do with the school board is actually try and work with our communities more collaboratively and just be upfront about it. Like everybody be transparent, and we can work together. And I think it's a great thing. So
Great. Yeah, great.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you
Really
for being
appreciate
here.
it. And if you guys want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. Or if you want to slip out,
You know how these meetings
She's
go.
there like, no. We're out of here.
So
Yeah,
we
it
still
is.
want to run old business then.
Yeah. So any old business,
I think
He had
you're,
his
you're on
hand
your
up.
way up. Yep.
so Mr. Catala.
My comments have to do with Sibley's.
That's
Yeah, go
fine.
ahead.
That's fine. Just step to the mic, please.
Painesville Township Trustees and Zoning Commission members. I am Richard G. Catala Sr. I am adjacent to this Sidley development where I have lived at 61 Bohall Road since 1966. And I am also adjacent to this Sidley development where my plant nursery is at 365 Bohall Road. The burden is on the zoning commission to follow their guidelines and to the township trustees to make good decisions for the betterment of our township community. There will be many, many, many concerns to address. I hope we as a concerned group make the right decisions, and thank you for letting me to speak here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I need a cheat sheet.
that's probably the best way to go.
Yeah, it's easier that way.
Yep.
Hello, I'm Bill Rich, and I've been a resident of Painesville Township for 34 years. I worked at the nuclear plant for 35 years and I retired from the nuclear plant. Before that, I was an MP in the regular army. Okay, a little background on my. I would like to give each trustee an NRC map that shows the emergency circle in our area. We have a 2-mile zone, a 5-mile zone, and in that 5-mile zone, you're going to see. You'll see that the Casement Village is going to be located in that 5-mile zone. There you go, sir.
Thank you.
Chicken Eddie.
Thank you.
After that, we have emergency planning. This is from the NRC. The NRC is the Nuclear Regulatory Committee, for some people that may not know that. They make the policies for our plant. Okay. And you'll see the 2-mile zone, which includes a 5-mile zone downwind in case there's an emergency. There you go, sir.
Thank you.
And here you go. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I've been at the nuclear plant for over 35 years. I retired there. And I guess my mindset is that our number one priority is safety. Okay. And security. Emergency planning falls into that suit. Okay. And they talk the talk and they walk the walk. Okay. They spend millions of dollars on these areas. They hire multiple people to take care of these areas. The training is world class. I had some of the best training in the world when I was there. I got trained by the FBI. I got trained by the International Chiefs of Police. I got trained National Tactical Officers Association, just to name a few. Okay. We're top notch. We take things very serious. A lot of people don't understand that our local law enforcement agency is the sheriff's department. Okay, if there was an emergency at the plant, okay, a violent attack, they are responsible to come to the plant. Now, I can't go into great details with this because a lot of this is safeguards. Some of you may have been in the military before. It's like a secret clearance, top secret clearance. So I can't go into great detail, but basically a lot of the manpower from the sheriff's department is going to go to the plant during a violent attack. Okay. Remember that. Okay. Just like Painesville Township, okay, their local law enforcement is also the sheriff's department, and Perry Township, which is in that area, is also the sheriff's department. Okay. 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 I spoke to the emergency coordinator, Joe Boucher. Okay. And I asked Mr. Boucher if there was an emergency plan in place. Okay. I explained to him who I was. I explained to him the amount of populace that the new Casement Village is gonna contain, and he basically told me, Bo, he goes, I've read about the Casement Village, I really don't, have a lot of details on that, as far as that goes. He goes, but in case of an emergency, basically we were gonna have the sheriff department direct traffic. Okay. Now, maybe Joe doesn't understand that the sheriff's department has a pretty big commitment at this stage. Okay. A lot of times agencies don't communicate with each other, believe it or not. This is a fact. Okay. Maybe this is the case here. Maybe he just assumed that they have the personnel there and they're going to go ahead and be able to supply this service for us. Okay. That's a little concerning, The other thing that he stated was that they're going to make one-way roads. Now, in theory, that works real well, okay? Let's say you have Madison Avenue, you make that into a one-way road. Okay, sure, that works, you know what I mean? You have a two-way road, you make it into a one-way road. Well, that takes a lot of planning. That takes a lot of people have to understand what's going on before that's done. You have to have signs on each road going into Madison Avenue. Plus, the residents, okay, they need to know. They have to be on board with this too. People going down the wrong way on that, that's going to be a great concern. How is that going to work? And the other thing is that, folks, okay, let's say you're out and you need to go home, okay? Pick up your family, okay? Pick up your children. A lot of people my age, seniors, you know, we live with grandchildren. We have to go get our grandchildren. We have to get a senior that may not be able to drive. We have to get a dog, a cat, a ferret, a guinea pig. We may not be able to come home. You know, this is the reality to this. This is a very serious reality. There's only one other area in the whole state that has our concern, and that's Port Clinton, Ohio. There's only 2 active nuclear plants in the state. And our nuclear plant is the biggest nuclear plant in the state. Second biggest nuclear plant in the world. Okay. So the one way theory, you know, does it work? I'll let you decide that. Okay, the other theory that they were going to work is that they're going to, I asked them about disabled vehicles. Okay, let's say we get a disabled vehicle on the road. How are we going to handle a disabled vehicle? Well, we'll get a snow plow and we'll push that vehicle right off the road. Okay, you know, maybe that'll work on a 4-lane highway if you can get a vehicle down there. Okay, but it leads to my next example. When I was a young MP, one of our jobs was to do convoy escorts. And we had to do a route recon before we did that, okay? We had security for the convoy. So we would go out there and run in gun jeeps, like Rat Patrol. I don't know if any of you guys remember Rat Patrol, but when you're 19, 20 years old, it's pretty awesome having an M60 machine gun and a 45 on your hip and playing Rat Patrol. But anyways, that was one of our responsibility. One day the Sarge comes up into my room, it's my day off, and he goes, "Hey Bo," he goes, "I need your help." He goes, we have to run a route recon because we're going to be doing a convoy escort. You know, it's my day off. Come on, Sarge. You know, I'm thinking to myself, young kid, you know. I go, "Sarge, let's just look at a map and let's go ahead and take care of it." You know what I mean? It take us a half hour to look at a map. He goes, "Bo," he goes, "that convoy is our responsibility. We need to go out there and we need to put eyes on the project." And I thought what he said to me, and I said, "Sarge, you're absolutely right. We need to go out there. We need to go out there and we need to see where the danger points are, where the pinch points are, where points are where this convoy can stop, rest, use the bathroom, etc., etc." So I used that train of thought when I went around my neighborhood, okay? So I live on Dorothea Drive, okay? I'm sure most people know where that is. So I take a left on Dorothea Drive and I go down Bull Hall Road. And I'm looking for, what do I notice? Well, you got a pinch point right there, guys. We got a big guardrail, okay? Now you got natural terrain, okay? You got steepness on the sides, okay? You got a big gully through there. And guess what? We got a railroad track, okay? Now, down the road, we have 2 more railroad tracks. How are you going to get a snowplow down that road if you had a disabled vehicle down there? Okay. I take a drive down Route 20, go around Calamity Curve, okay, up through that area over there. Go up to Casement Avenue, Casement Road. I'm looking down this road, and this is a very, very windy road. This is a very curvy road. If somebody went down that road, didn't have control of the vehicle, left in a panic, left in a high speed, you could have serious problems on that road. Okay? So these roads are poor for evacuation. These roads need to be addressed. They need to be taken care of, or we need new roads. Okay? We need new access roads right to Route 2. Okay? that is going to be the road that my family is going to go down. That's the road that my neighbor is going to go down. Bow Hall, we're going to go to Route 2. Okay. You have Route 90, you have that beautiful bridge down on 84. That's a good road. That's a good road for people from Perry Township. That's a good road for people from the south part of our community to go down. You know, it's a beautiful bridge. It's a beautiful road for that area there. But we certainly all can't go down the same road. Okay. Um, you know, the zoning people say that they can do what they want with the property. Okay. Perhaps they can. But I think the number one thing that we have to have is we need our safety. And in likelihood that something will happen there, our safety should be priority number one. Okay. This is the way I feel. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
You guys have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, please. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Hi guys, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
You too.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's not the top 10 biggest.
My name is Linda Cicconetti. I live at 130 Hemlock Court. I just have a couple questions because I don't know this concerning the apartments. What is the ruling on Section 8 housing when you have apartments? Does a certain amount of them have to be? How big are these apartment units going to be?
They're 1 and 2 bedroom, and they'll have a limit on.
How many units?
There's 400 and.
There's 418 total. They came in with 618. It's at 418 now, and it'll be split approximately equal. I don't know, give or take, but half of it's supposed to be senior housing, a 55 plus apartment. The other one, they're going to be marketing towards
Young professionals.
young professionals. A lot of people work from home. That's kind of what they're marketing to. That's what they're telling us they're going to be marketing to. But 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. So one interesting, Linda, if I can just comment, Gabe did a check over on. Why don't you share it, Gabe, about the.
Oh, I just did a study with. I contacted Riverside just to get a quick rundown on the apartments. And
I'm Brookstone.
What is the name of? All of a sudden, I'm
Cobblestone.
Cobblestone.
There you go.
Approximately right behind Home Depot. It used to be Painesville Township until some years ago that was taken from us, but it's Painesville City. But those residents still attend Riverside schools. They have 618 apartments in that development. They have a total of 19 kids that go to elementary school out of 618 apartments. So we're talking about an apartment development that's 50% less, almost and
half of that
will likely be senior or 55 and over living. So now you're talking 200 units. So if the same math applies, and those are 3 bedroom units included in that development, these will only have 1 and 2 bedrooms. So the impact on the school from those we anticipate to be very low. As far as the Section 8 goes, I could not speak to. I don't think any of us could speak to the requirements. I do believe that the landlord is the one that accepts or does not.
Isn't it a law? I don't know.
No, because I believe some landlords can say no Section 8. So, but on top of that, we've set in this agreement that if it goes through, we've set minimum rent standards that they can never go below to attract higher income young professionals and such, empty nesters, and with the size and the cost.
You mean in order to attract?
In order to attract, that's who we want their market to be, to ensure that it's even less impact on the schools, because it's more of single, married couples or a single person or 55 and over. So.
But there's no guarantee that there would be Section 8.
I do have the rental rates.
That's why I was just going to say the rental rates, and then we'll get back to that question.
Our rental rates, or their rental not
rates.
Section 8, but this.
So in the development agreement, they've agreed to rental ranges of $1.70 to $2 per square foot for these apartments, which I'll do the math for you. For a 1-bedroom apartment, ranges from $1,250 a month to $1,400 a month. and 2-bedroom units from 1,800 to 1,900 per month. So those are the rental ranges for these units.
And the size of those, you're talking 1,100. Where's the square footage? Do we?
I don't have that.
Did they have that?
I have the total square footage. For the non-senior
700.
market rate, the minimum square footage for a 1-bedroom would be 750, and the minimum square footage for a 2-bedroom would be 1,100 square feet.
So you're talking almost $2,000 a month for an 1,100 square foot 2-bedroom apartment. That's likely going to families. That's not conducive to family living in most cases. So we, like I said, doing that as far as Section 8 goes, have no clue where that falls in. I believe the landlord can accept or not accept, but based on these rents, I don't even know if they would fall within the allotments.
Not going to be any Section 8.
Because the amount of money they're spending to build this, that needs to be recouped for that building. And again, and this goes to that.
They want
that-
high value clients. What they're
Right.
wording, right?
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Question about the retention ponds, which you're gonna have to have. Is there gonna be fencing around those?
Probably
Generally not.
It's gonna be up to each homeowner to fence in their own yard if they're worried about their
Yeah,
kids.
but I mean, you look at every development. So we'll take Fairway Meadows or the new development on Cali Farms, or even Heisley Park, or I think you have some in your
Seminars too.
and in Lake Erie Shores. They're not a place that most children. I know that's a concern for some,
Okay.
but
I know at Heisley Park, I see them. Some of them are practically in people's backyards.
that's how they have them. That's how it is over here in Cali Farms. If you look, it's literally their backyard slope into the pond. So as you can see, the two from the road. The two from the road as you pass. I mean, they're nine. What are they? Nine and a half.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that there's lots that we would probably not buy that
Yeah.
somebody's going to buy. I mean, next to a pond, right next to a pond, near the railroad. I mean, a number of things that.
But no, they likely we can't speak to. But based on every other development that we've seen in our community, I wouldn't anticipate them fencing them.
Back to the apartments, how does that work? Is there a maximum number of occupancy per apartment?
Well, we have zoning on. Don't we have occupancies no more than 4 unrelated?
Oh, we've got a that's under unrelated individuals. However, housing standards, safe housing standards state that there is a specific square footage, and I'm sorry I can't answer that question now. There's a specific square footage per individual that needs to be provided.
Does that apply to apartments also?
It
Homes
would
and
be
apartments?
any living unit.
Okay.
And our zoning resolution limits no more than 4 unrelated people in a household. On top of that, so.
Okay. Yeah. Right. One more question: where will these construction vehicles be entering and exiting?
We haven't got that far, but during construction, they'll be going off the main road there,
So-
Casement.
so
can drive them.
Yeah, so Casement, Route 20 and Casement. Not.
That's the part that's going to open up first, right?
Yes.
They're going to be starting the construction off. The first area they want to go to is off of Casement, just east of that. Yeah, just east of that is where they want to do the first pods.
Where the hangars are currently, the Builder Center.
The development will be in that northwest corner, and then kind of start in that northern parts first. So all that road, and that's where the construction vehicle. Because some of the supplies in the initial development, they state they'll be getting from the Sidley plant or retail spot, which is right there. So likely some of the construction material they'll pull in there and then enter through the Casement entrance to go in. So
Okay. Thought I had one more. No, I guess that's it.
because they're going to finish the road as they go, so
Right.
It'll be a long time before believe that they'll
Are
have
those
that.
roads going to be concrete or asphalt?
We require all roads concrete curb and gutter with asphalt middles.
That's just a long-term maintenance issue for us.
That's right. Now the private sections, if they have any, that's going to be entirely up to them, because we won't maintain those
The
roads.
private sections being the apartments.
The 55 and over, the apartments, if the townhome, if they do a 55 and over type of single family, like ranches, let's say, if they make that a private development, that road they may do all concrete. Who knows? It's up to them because they'll maintain it, not us.
Good.
So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
real simple question. to
Real
ask
quick,
you.
I know you. It's
Oh,
your
Mike
return.
Morris
to-
Shock.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
back. Big Joe. Anyway, the pods that they're talking about, these cluster homes within the pods. Now, if the prints that I've seen showing these pods, they're clustered anywhere from 3 together, wall to wall, or 4 together, wall to wall. To me, that sounds like a fire looking for a place to happen. If they are butted up wall to wall, you are at the mercy of the person on the other side of that wall. How are they getting away with doing that?
A fire chief will tell you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
firewalls by state fire codes that have to go between the units.
yes, sir. And how long is it the fire before it can broach into the other one? They're allowed.
There's a minimum of 4-hour firewalls between each one.
You're not going to
Minimum of 4.
4-hour firewalls, yes, sir.
Are they wood or are they concrete?
No, they're usually drywall.
You still have a roof. It's a connecting roof.
I understand that. And there is.
Been in construction. It doesn't take that long.
Spread through a roof from one to the other, but there is. I'm just letting you know what
Sure.
the code is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
The code is a 4-hour firewall between each unit.
Somehow I don't trust these people from Columbus.
Okay. That's what it is.
No, I appreciate that, but no, that was my big concern because there are going to be a lot of those throughout this whole area.
Sure.
And the fire department, if one takes off and it jumps, it doesn't necessarily go next door. We get the one that's across the street, or not even across the street, in their backyard catches. You got a hell of a job behind you. I don't believe this is the safest way to do it in that area.
How many are like
A division, at least 10 foot in between homes.
In a row. How many
So
in a
you
row?
Fight the fire.
6.
So
that all falls under the fire code.
And Lake Erie Shores is a great example. I mean, they have 6 in a row down there, and we're going on I don't know how many
So far, you're
over
lucky.
10 years. Yeah, so it's just the nature of townhomes. Unfortunately, that's how they're built. Whether it's here or
But there's some contractors that build homes I don't really trust. I've seen some pretty shoddy things say, "Oh, this will pass that fire
Yeah.
code." So, thank you.
All right, thanks.
I'm Rosemary Torok. I'm actually a resident of Concord, but just over the Painesville Township border on Fairgrounds Road. I'm here because I'm concerned about the overdevelopment throughout the county, but since this board is discussing issues related to the Casement Road project, there's a couple of questions I have. You've mentioned that, well, they can build whatever they want because of how it's zoned.
Well, can I correct the statement on that? Because I'm the one who made it. It's not that they can build whatever they want. They can build to what's currently zoned, and it's zoned for FPUD. So if they wanted to build, they could submit a plan to zoning that follows by the book for whatever it says. No, it's an FPUD. So it would follow by the book an FPUD, which is flexible plan unit development. So within a flexible plan unit development, you get with the open space and all that. But if they follow the resolutions as it's listed, we would have no say. So by them coming to us, and anytime property was zoned FPUD, and this property was zoned FPUD back in 2003, or I think it was, or 5 in that range. I think 2003 is when it was zoned FPUD. So when it was zoned FPUD, now anybody can build on that if they follow those codes. But the moment somebody comes in an FPUD and they want to make an adjustment, that opens the negotiations. So that's where they want something, we want something. So that's where that comes into play. So the statement is they can build to the code.
They can build a code up to around 1,400 homes.
Which would be about 13 to 1,400
As long
homes.
as they follow the standards, we have no say in what they build. That's what we meant.
As the way it's currently zoned.
Corrected.
So my question is, why is so much land zoned that way? When does it stop? Do we want to become another Cleveland Heights? I mean, the traffic on West Jackson eastbound towards Heisley Park is ridiculous already, and that's just one development, one street. I mean, we have to think about what it's going to do by zoning this way. And I mean, we need green space that's not just a park. I mean, where does it end? We're going to be overdeveloping, and everything is going to be residential or commercial. And what else will there be?
So
And I think in regard to this property, not to, but that was, as Chuck mentioned, that was about 20 years ago. None of us were sitting on that board when they made that decision.
I realize that.
So, in regards to this property, that was already done and written into the plan so that zoning was already done. So we didn't make that change. It's FPUD now. They're coming in for an FPUD, which it's zoned, but they want some changes.
FPUDs are out there? Is there any more available property in FPUD?
Well, that's what I said. Personally, I made this comment along the way that I view this as probably one of the last developments that we would see in Painesville Township based on the land and the way it's zoned. Outside of our residential R1 type of single, somebody buys a lot and builds a house on it. I personally don't see much more development in our community based on the type of land and the current zoning. I mean, I won't, I'm not saying 100%, but I don't see rezoning anything else in the future, possibly do an FPUD based on where we're at. So, but
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to speak to the history of our specifically FPUD developments. So we do have an FPUD development off of Richmond. The property owner had taken the township to court because they were denied. And the judge decreed that they could build apartments. And this was under a different board. But under this board, the trustees negotiated with that owner, and now there are townhomes there and significantly less density than what was approved by a judge. And this is public record. And then for Fairway Pines development, that is another development where the township was taken to court and sued for the right to develop, and the judge did grant the property owner the right to develop their land. And again, before this board, renegotiations were made, and it is less densely populated than what was originally approved in the consent decree.
And so, so these
are all true statements. Just north of Fairway Pines on Bacon Road, McKinley Crossing is now being developed. It was previously approved to be condominiums, and again, with this board, more recently, this was last year, they renegotiated with the property owner. They are now single family units. They're more densely packed, but that was the negotiation. So it is less dense. And I would say that at the end of the day, the trustees are bound by what a judge decides a private property owner has the right to do as a private property owner.
I know that that's a factor.
Yeah,
I
so
realize that. But my question comes down to zoning. How does so much land get zoned for more and more and more development?
So again, like in the example for Fairway Pines, that was zoned recreational because it was a golf course. The property owner applied for a rezoning, they were denied, and then they took that denied to court. And that's happened twice to the township.
That's one way.
That's one way. And in 2004, the property owners for the Sidleys approached the township, or 2003 approximately, approached the township asking for that rezoning. That rezoning request was a public hearing, just like this rezoning request is. And at that time, that board made the decision, which wasn't this board, that board made the decision to rezone that property. And as it sits now, that rezoning is out of this board's hands. It is now currently zoned FPUD, and within that zoning, the property owner has rights, as if somebody that owned a single family.
I'll even add that.
I was there.
Oh yeah, he was here,
but
he didn't get a vote.
At that point in time, the city of Painesville was being very, very aggressive
with annexation,
annexing our Painesville Township property, like all that property that's by Heisley
Cobblestone,
there,
Heisley Park,
that
all
was
that used to be
Painesville
township.
480 acres that city
stole.
And the city of Mentor stole from many of us at one time. But and also we have what's called the Red Creek Interceptor, which is going there, which is a very important sewage capacity that not only takes care of that area, but a big surrounding area. And so the city of Painesville, of course, was going to offer them a deal because they have a sewage plant, which we don't. And so those things all go in when you're in a negotiation. But when you're thinking, I mean, some properties always zone something. It's either residential, commercial. It's got to be zoned something.
Yeah, and so just to piggyback on that, so the street I live on dead ends into this development. My street will be extended into the development towards the end of the project. We built there 16, 17 years ago. Before we built a house there, it was a nursery. A nursery was no longer viable on that property. The property owner has a right to do something with their property that's viable. I mean, you can't zone them for something that is not economically viable for them. So they were able to request a change. It became single family. This development where it's taking place used to be a rock quarry. I don't know who would want a rock quarry in their backyard. I don't. After that, it was a concrete batch plant, and then an airport. So I mean, it has evolved through the years, and as you're saying, property owners have rights. I'd like to see it open space. I'd love to see it open space. I don't have the money to buy this to keep it open space, though.
And this is my ignorance. I don't understand how do we get zoning changed?
Well, either the property owner would have to apply for a zoning, or the township could have the request the zoning board to initiate a zoning change. But if you take a piece of property, let's say, example, when they come to us for zoning, as Mike mentioned that, and you or Harley mentioned, and you decline it because they do have rights to viable use of their property. They took us meaning Painesville Township, in the past to court and won. So we tried to, the township administration at the time tried to stop the rezone, took us to court. A judge decided that they had fair use of their property and gave them rights to develop it the way they wanted against the wishes of the township. So that's what, this whole thing circles around, is we have to find a common ground with these property owners to keep township residents like myself and many in this out of spending money in court that doesn't need to be spent, avoiding development that would not be, very beneficial to the township. And the last piece is the dirty word, the annexation. If they were to get stonewalled by this board, their other option is to go to Painesville City and have it annexed and work that out. And at that point, they could fill it with high-rise apartments, and we wouldn't have a say at all. So
I understand.
So that's why when you ask how we get there, it's being very careful as much as possible and putting up as many stops as we can until the legal side of it takes over and makes a decision for us. And that's what we're trying to avoid in this situation,
Who on the board thinks we could use more green space? I mean, is that even a thought?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
So we've
All right.
So we've acquired green space. This board has. I mean, that's something that we've spoken
Plenty.
about. We've acquired green space as a community. One of the things, and I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but so with the FPUDs, there is another parcel of property that's not developed yet, but that's tied into the Fairway Meadows, and at some point we believe they're going to develop that. They haven't approached us on it, but they've already knocked all the trees over. Now these properties were zoned probably 20 years ago, except for this one. This one was handled out in the court case where the judge made the decree. There's a name for it. I can't think of it. No, there's the name of the court case. Anyhow, Drill-X, I think it was. But anyhow, there aren't any other properties that are zoned FPUD. And if somebody were to come and want it, they would have to have a heck of a good reason to do it and would have to work for the township's benefit. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I mean, never say never, but it's not our intent to to open up another parcel of property
Yeah,
like
that's
this. These happened 20 years ago, and now we're having to manage it to the best of our ability. And so in the negotiations, you're always trying to make it best for your community, and that's what we're trying to do. The property owners are trying to make it best for them. That's what negotiations are about. I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, a lot of people complain about a problem with deer. There's deer in their backyards the middle of the afternoon. People have collisions with deer all the time. I mean, just imagine what this is going to do. That's going to, like,
We haven't been able to keep like 45 acres of green space that we've negotiated all around that river area.
It's 20%. So we got 395 acres, 20%. It's
80
actually about 80 acres.
80 acres
80
of green space will be
green
retained.
space that no one could build on.
okay. So we just
So-
have to make sure the deer stay on that.
Yeah, I got to put them on a leash.
They will.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Unrelated to my previous comments, but since it,
If you could just state your name and address again, just
Mary Ellen Abel, still at 50 Barley Drive. It's nice to know that we now have some idea as to what is going on, because in earlier meetings, I asked questions about the apartments. Didn't realize that there were 418 apartments. Don't know what size. The question I have, though, is, and I tried to ask this at a previous meeting, what the town center was, and nobody could define it. Well, it's in negotiations. Is it green space? Is it a pavilion? Is it a building?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
Projected.
Do we have a picture of it?
No, because we don't even know how much land we're getting yet, so we have no idea what this is going to entail until we can
Well,
and that's part of the process of negotiating the purchase of land for public use. So part of this negotiation is trying to acquire land within that center for township use. For depending how much we get, then we can decide what we can do with it.
Well, with
Mr.
how
Chairman,
many
I do
people?
want to add for town center, there is another component. So there's the portion that would be owned and operated and maintained by the township, and then there is the additional space that the developer would be providing, which would have an HOA over it. The other portion of town center, so within the town center, there's a total of 30% of rooftop space that will be permitted. Within town center, there are very strict and specific use requirements for, and all of the buildings will have to be small scale and boutique style. We're looking at restaurants, ice cream shops, walkable boutique type retail establishments, as long as it's marketable, obviously. And then Casement Mansion, there's been discussion about it potentially being an Airbnb, or not an Airbnb, a bed and breakfast in the future. Things like that would be taking place within town center. The goal is to make it an economically viable, destination point for people.
Well, part of the problem with that is parking areas. I mean, when we were talking about town center and a Painesville Township identity, I take it your offices will stay here and the commercial development will be over there. If you have a community gathering in that location, where do you put all those? What did I say? 20,450 people. 10,000 cars, maybe 5,000 cars. Once a amphitheater was mentioned being in that area. Would that be owned by the HOA? Because Painesville Township would have no authority over that quote-unquote HOA.
No, the amphitheater and the public park would be, at this time in negotiations, would be owned and operated by Painesville Township. What we are asking for is approximately a 5-acre park, a public park.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, there's discussion of JED funds for the commercial areas, which would bring in income for the township to maintain that space.
Okay. And I remember at one of the previous meetings, and I listened to your presentation at the school board meeting a couple weeks ago. fire station being located in that area, why not expand the fire station that exists on Bohall Road, as opposed to possibly putting a brand new fire station in there?
I mean, first of all, you're looking at a building that's how old is that building?
Built 1966.
Yeah, so we're looking at a 60 plus year old building on a lot that is landlocked with not much space. I mean, there's as it stands now, the space is barely enough to get the engines and emergency vehicles in and out. So to expand that will leave no room for vehicle space. So that expansion at that location, beyond maybe adding a bathroom or something on any functional
They
space to
couldn't
add.
go up to a second story by reinforcing.
We're not engineers, and it's never been looked at that way. But
It's
based
hard to
on
park fire trucks up there.
yeah,
No,
but
well, excuse me.
but based on the age of it and the way it was built, I would think that you
So
get into that money.
It's basically in the same ballpark as the Lake County Jail and Riverside High School, beyond its basic life expectancy.
Well, it is. Well, no, it's not beyond, but at its current state, it's okay. But if you're talking about
It still has all
renovating or
its
adding
regs.
on, no, it probably is not conducive to doing that.
It's fine what it's doing right now, but
Yeah, its current use is good, but any expansion is not.
Okay, I think that's because before we were talking about the town center, it's a gathering of things, but there are going to be township offices in this town center somewhere?
It is possible, depending on how much space we get. Again, this is something that we don't even know how much land. If we're getting land, we don't know that yet. So all of that is part of what we're still working on. Once we know that, then we can look at it and say, what kind of viable use do we have here? But until we know how much land we're getting, talking about what exactly is going to be there would be premature.
Okay. My other question is I used to live off of Park Road on Manhattan Parkway. I spent 25 years there. There is a lot of undeveloped land there that's still in Painesville Township. Some of it's probably nursery. I don't know if it's being farmland, but mostly nursery. So we might end up having that developed at some point down the line.
Yeah, and those are smaller I mean, yes, they're significant parcels, but they're much smaller than this. But yeah,
That's
I mean,
if somebody doesn't accumulatively.
And again, that's when the property owner decides at that point that they want to vacate the operations currently. Then they have to come up with a plan, approach the township for whatever they want to do, and that's a bridge we'll have to cross when they bring that to us.
4 nurseries in there right now.
That property is all zoned R1. That's not an FPUD. So whatever the zoning for the R1 calls for is what they would have to build.
Residential.
Okay, so
75-foot lots, I believe.
Yeah.
R1.
Okay. I was just cringing at the thought of, because a lot of what's happened, I mean, some of the nurseries, even in Lake County, which was at one time the nursery capital of Northeast Ohio, maybe even the state of Ohio.
The country at least, right?
And
the world.
And the rose gardens that the Great Lakes Mall currently resides in. The families have ceased having families move into the nurseries, and it seems like little by little segments of that are being developed, but the infrastructure.
Well, there's
is
a good
not
example of family, right? I mean, grandfather and grandson here, nursery operators, so it still exists. It's
Yes,
still
but
going on.
Well, the one that comes to mind, and is Zampini, who was probably the big kahuna of Lake County for a number of years, and I have no idea what's happened to his land. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And HOAs came up, and I guess if anybody else has questions, we can get to those. But HOAs came up, and I don't know that anybody likes HOAs. I have an HOA. I don't really care for it. I mean, it's not terrible, but what that does is prevents the township and all of you from paying to maintain the common space, the open space that's in these developments. So while if you're in an HOA, I mean, you're paying for those amenities, but if you're not, you're not. So HOAs are really there to help protect the
People
entire
that don't live in
township
them.
from maintaining and spending money on those properties. I had something else I was going to mention with HOAs, and I forget now.
From a zoning aspect, on an HOA, I live in one, I serve on a board in my neighborhood. From a zoning aspect, all zoning violations go to the HOA. They don't come to the township. They come to the township if the HOA isn't doing their job. From a stormwater management, the HOA requires to take care of all the stormwater issues. It doesn't go to the township or the county. The HOA is responsible for it. So there are a lot of benefits if you live in an HOA community. You have to choose to live in an HOA community. A lot of people don't want it. I happen to like it. It worked for me. Everybody has their own thing they like. So it's not a bad place to live. It has a lot of benefits. And from a maintenance standpoint in a township, it's good for a township to have those HOAs. Those are all volunteer positions. And people have to manage that, and they pay for that too. Those homeowners pay. In my neighborhood, we pay $350 a year. We have a management company. We have 3 board members. The only thing that we get from the township is our roads fixed and our roads plowed. Well, and of course, fire service, but all the zoning aspect, that's purely the HOA. All the other parts, that's HOA. It's not a bad place if you so choose it.
And their detention basins, when they need to be dredged, maintained,
we pay for that.
That's the HOA that pays for it. It's
we
not
pay for that.
the township.
That's part of our $350 a year. We pay for that.
So that was just, I heard some negatives on HOAs and
the private parks, the beach access. I pay for that. I mean, that's something I pay every year. And if I don't pay it, then we don't get it, right? So it's not a bad deal if you so choose that environment. Now, a lot of people here like the R1. I don't blame you. You get 75-foot lots, right? And deeper lots. Well, my lot's 70 foot and it's 240 some feet, so it's kind of nice. But R1 definitely has its advantages, but R1 also has disadvantages because if your neighbor next door puts his car up on jacks and he leaves it out there for 6 months and he drips oil all over his driveway and he puts other stuff, we do, but you're limited onto what you can do. So an HOA has tighter restrictions where R1 doesn't. We live in a township. We don't live in a city. City has tighter regulations with an R1. Townships have looser regulations because we can't write laws. We defer to the state of Ohio, the Ohio Revised Code. If the Ohio Revised Code doesn't say the guy next door can put his car up on jacks and leave it there for 8 months, there's nothing that we can legally do to stop that. Now, there are things that we can do, but, and we're getting this whole HOA thing, but it has a negative connotation, and it shouldn't. So, for what it's worth.
One little question. Can a township stop somebody from running a garage in their own home, private home, having cars stacked out front and junkers out back, if they run a garage out of their home?
No.
You cannot
Right at the end of our road.
No, you can't. You can't, Harley. Why don't you weigh in?
So it depends on what you're asking. So if someone is operating a mechanic shop out of their garage,
Commercial business.
it's a commercial business that's taking place on a residential property. Now, while we do permit home occupations, there's specific ones that create nuisances that we do not. And a mechanic would be one of them. Now, the issue with that is that as a township, our zoning resolution and violations of a zoning resolution is actually a criminal misdemeanor as opposed to a civil case. And that's per the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio says it's a criminal misdemeanor to violate the resolution. The issue with that is that obviously we have to handle it in criminal court as opposed to issuing citations, things like that. But in addition to that, because we're handling it in a criminal court, we have the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So our burden of proof is significantly higher than, say, a city that is going through a civil case. So we have to have significant evidence to support our case that it's taking place. So while it is not a permitted use, it is illegal. If it is obvious, if there's a lot of evidence that can support our case, we can definitely take it. It's just a matter of the evidence. But yeah, it's definitely a violation to operate a mechanic shop out of a garage.
And lastly, in regards to the car, I was like,
Yeah,
the
then
vehicles, they have to be current license plates, stickers. So if it's not current, and it doesn't have a current up-to-date registration, that's considered unlicensed. That is a zoning violation, and we have teeth to approach them. And okay. Any new business? Oh,
I have one other question. Will we be seeing an updated layout? Because I know at the last meeting.
everything that gets updated has been on our website for
Yes.
quite a while. So it's on our website. There's a big heading right on our website. You can click on that. Any new up-to-date stuff gets added to that file. It's right on our website. So as soon as you land on the landing page, you'll see the casement development. You click that, and it shows you what's there.
But I guess to answer the question, I don't know that personally. I anticipate any major updates to that site plan they had
because it's preliminary. It's not a final plan, so it wouldn't be too much altering of it at this point.
Dave, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
My understanding is that any upgrades on roads, bridges, whatever's going to be made, in case of evacuation or just any upgrades that's going to be made, that's going to be on their dime, the people that are developing this.
Yes.
Yeah. Within
traffic study.
Yeah.
Yes.
So any kind of new roads that we deem that are necessary for evacuations or any kind of upgrades on these roads, that is going to be on their dime. They will have to pay for this.
When you say
yeah, I mean that's
when you said we deem.
That is deemed. How about that?
So the county
contractor has to pay for any upgrades.
Yes.
By the traffic study.
And would that be done if this goes forward? Will that be done before this goes forward? I mean, I would expect any upgrades, any new roads, a bridge, a tunnel to be made before.
Well, keep in mind here, while this development we throw, these big numbers get thrown around, right? You're talking 10 to 15 years before this is done, right? So when the timeline of those roads getting done, that the county especially, they're going to do their traffic study and they're going to advise them, and they may say, all right, once you start doing these pods or these parts of the development, now you have to do this because it'll add this many people. Whereas if it's just this business, it might, if they're just putting, say, the nursing home in, right, it may not be a huge impact. So they're not going to have to do anything at that point. So all that will be handled with the traffic study, and then the county will advise them based on that along the way.
Okay, so the developers will be responsible for any upgrades, any new roads, anything like that.
100%.
Thank you very
yes.
much.
Okay.
Just on their property, not.
No.
Their property.
No. Everywhere.
The traffic study deems that this will
Everywhere.
impact elsewhere. They're responsible.
Well, okay.
Yes.
The traffic study.
Yes, traffic.
Yes.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I have a letter that was received, and it was requested that it be read into the minutes.
Okay.
From a resident named Fred Wheeler. He does not give his address.
He's Nelmar Drive.
Nelmar Drive, thank you. To the Township Trustees and people of Painesville Township, I would like to put into record my concerns of how this project will affect the township school system. I regret not being able to attend the meeting tonight, as I understand a representative from the school district will be present. My main concern is for the obvious influx of new students. Will this mean expansions of existing schools or even the construction of new schools' campuses? Has there been any projection made to understand when these new schools will be needed? This question is important for residents on fixed incomes so we can start to plan for the new taxes that will be coming with this project. I like living in the township. We have strong, capable, and knowledgeable leadership. I am for this housing development. I only ask that we proceed slowly and cautiously, as this is probably the biggest project in a while ever this township will deal with. Please move forward with caution and include enough time to fully discuss and understand the impact this will have on the school system. Respectfully, Fred Wheeler. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other new business? Yes.
I just have one question.
We asked to come up to lectern.
Yes.
State your name.
Name and address for the record, please.
I remember it.
My name is Terrence Doyle. Actually, I'm from Painesville, but I just have one question.
We need your address also, sir.
452 Southington Boulevard.
Thank you.
When is all this supposed to start?
We don't know. We haven't even got to a final to approve it yet. So once we approve it, then they'll start giving us timelines when they come for approval on the first phase of their project. So it's a multi-step. They would like to start this year, but when, that's
It's
based
not
on us
gonna
approving
happen.
it.
They're
And
probably 2 years away. They're
Yeah.
probably 18 months to 2 years away. By the time they put their plans together, they submit, they go through the road study, they do their stormwater study. The county has to look at all of that, evaluate it, and then they have to go into engineering. So you're probably
plus the sewers.
sewers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably a good 18 months at the very earliest, which is more like 2 years plus before this thing even breaks ground and begins. So what we are reviewing is a preliminary plan. That's all we're looking at is a preliminary plan. We aren't granting final access to anything, and any plans. Part of this agreement is if they want to move forward, they have to present each pod to us for approval, and then from there, the whole process plays out again. So there'll be more public hearings at that point for each pod. So this is strictly a preliminary hearing.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I just want to wish everyone a happy Easter.
All right,
Tell
thank you.
everyone only trusting Jesus the only way to heaven.
Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank
Amen.
you. Sir?
Okay.
Got one gentleman here.
Johnson, 1160 Dorothea Drive. I was wondering if anyone has given any consideration to the security concerns talked with the sheriff's department in regards to their patrols. And I'm not sure if you people are aware that quite often you see homeless people walking along Northridge Road. How will that be addressed? I believe some of them are living under the bridges in that area. Has anyone been discussed that with the sheriff's department?
I mean,
I don't want the transients to move into the other areas. That's what my concern is.
Well, they have a right to be on the road, but as long as they're not disturbing the peace or impacting anybody's property or personal property, there's not much that can be done. If they are, then the sheriff's office is the one that you want to call because they are a law enforcement agency. We have no authority to enforce any type of laws. All that goes through the sheriff's office. If you're not getting a response from the sheriff's office, by all means, you can come to us and we can help intervene. But if there is anything legally that needs to be taken care of, the sheriff's office is going to be your first call because they are all of our law enforcement agency in Painesville Township. So they're the ones that enforce the laws and are responsible for that because we contract with them to do so.
And per the Ohio Revised Code, they're required to keep the peace in the townships.
No, I understand.
And it's a
I'm wondering with
delicate balance.
construction, I'm concerned that some of the transients may be moving into other areas or even by the town center. It might be a place that might attract people that we don't really may not want there, may need other help. I'm not sure how to word that. But
Sure.
I think you
Yep,
understand.
we all understand. Yeah.
Once that'll be something that once finally construction, if it kicks off, that that I'm sure the developer will work with because they want to make sure that their materials, their equipment, and such aren't messed with either. So I would assume that they would have some sort of discussion with the sheriff's office to make sure that everything is safe.
Okay.
So
thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, got to throw something out. I guess I'm going to, aren't I?
Mm-hmm.
You can stop me. All right. So on the issue that Mr. Rich addressed with the EMA and the evacuation routes, on March 23rd, I requested a meeting with the EMA director, Joe Busher, and he brought along from First Energy from the nuclear power plant, Jerome Barclay, and I met with them for probably, hour and a half, 2 hours. We spoke about this in depth of the evacuation routes, and so the picture you gave, Bo, I've had, and they told me, actually, it's kind of funny. You actually called them right before I came in. I had a meeting at 9 o'clock, and I think you called at 8:30. And so he just got off the phone with you, and he walked into a meeting with me. So it was kind of good timing. So we've looked at that, and according to Mr. Busher, this is the Lake County Emergency Management Director. They're telling us that they've evaluated, part of their job also then is I said, how do these lists get updated? How does this map get updated? Who looks at this thing and what happens? So he said the Lake County, they talk to the townships, they talk to the communities, they talk to the county, and with the county specifically, they talk with the Lake County Engineer's Office. And then so I picked up, my next phone call was to the Lake County Engineer's Office, and I spoke with, what's her name? Tracy, who's the chief deputy. Tracy Sakowicz. So Tracy's a chief deputy, and she's second in command basically to the Commissioner Gills. And so she spoke how they, part of their plan, because they have to update this plan annually about the emergency evacuation routes. And this binder was like literally this thick, and it has to do with the whole everything, right? part of it has to do with these evacuation routes. They explained it. They spoke, as you mentioned, Bo, he told you, the sheriff, and he showed me in his book where the sheriffs have to go to certain intersections. And what they do is they take these roads that are two ways and they turn them into one ways and everybody's directed out. I understand the concerns you made, but this is the Lake County. This is evaluated by, who's the nuclear in Washington? NRC. So they have to evaluate all of this. Now, I'm a trustee. If the Lake County director tells me that they're good and they have a plan in place to address it, then I would be inept to tell him he's wrong. There is a follow-up plan with the Lake County Engineer's Office and the other departments they speak with, and they address it. So that's the one issue. Trying to stay on top of that one. The other one, there's a concern about money, and one of the conversations I've heard is that people are going to be our services are going to be stretched thin, and we're not going to have any more money and stand by for more levies. So with new construction actually pays into a levy. The only time they don't pay into a levy and the levy gets dispersed amongst more people if there's a bond issue. So if there's like a school levy, and the school they have a bond issue and they go out and they build a school and they say they request $10 million. Well, if there's 10,000 homes, and which there'll be a lot more in this district, but if there were 10,000 homes, those 10,000 homes would equally share that dollar amount to pay off this $10 million bond. As more homes get built and more businesses get added, you now have more people and businesses paying into that pot. And so what actually happens to the existing property owners is you actually pay less towards that particular bond issue because there's more people paying into it. The difference, though, with all the levies that we have in the township is that they are all normal levies. And by normal, I just mean is that we requested a certain amount based upon a certain property value, and then that's what you end up paying. And so got looking into it, and I tried to calculate, well, if we go to full build out, if we went to full build out on this, if this development goes to full build out and say 10 to 15 years, I always do that we thing, right? I get that look. Well, because part of this process, I mean, we're all working together, trying to work for the best for the community.
I said it too, and not to interrupt, but I clarify that today it's we because we have such a vested interest in making sure this is done right that the we comes up because we're so heavily involved with this project that it slips in there because we view this as a we thing, not just them, right? So us and them, it's we working on it. So
you as we,
yeah, we're all we.
We're
That's
representing.
What I mean.
You're our we.
So,
we're representing.
All right. So this full build out, looking strictly at residential homes on new construction, strictly residential, ignoring the businesses that are going to go there, the commercial businesses, whether it's a nursing home, whether it's professional offices, whether it's these boutique businesses who all will pay property taxes as well, looking strictly at property taxes and nothing else. I ran some figures, and so I ran them by the Lake County Auditor's Office, and they came back, and I'm going to read their statement that they want me to read. It says, this analysis was prepared by Trustee Hillier, reviewed by the Lake County Auditor's Office. Lake County Auditor's Office finds it to be a reasonable estimate of future revenue based on current conditions and known data points. Lake County Auditor's Office makes no guarantees on final revenue. Please note the proposed development project is phased and projections are based on information provided by the developer, which are subject to change. So a lot of legalese there, right? But basically they're saying nothing's guaranteed in life and these numbers are reasonable. So the number that was calculated came out to just shy of $2.7 million for Painesville Township, strictly based on residential. So that means we would have $2.7 million on full build out, probably 10 to 15 years. So it would take a while to get there. But those dollars then would be split between the different departments. And I even broke it down as to who would get what based upon the levies. But that would be the total amount. Riverside would be strictly based on residential on full build out 10 to 15 years from now, sitting around $4.7 million. Now, those are all projections, but the Lake County Auditor's Office believes those projections were reasonably calculated. So, nothing is guaranteed in life except death and taxes, but you have to make best estimates along the way, and that's what we're trying to do. So looking at this whole process, we're looking at the concerns that you have, the concerns that you have shared with us as a development, the schools getting inundated with more students. We're looking at the emergency evacuations. All of these things come into play. That's our job to look into it. So we're going to keep digging. We're going to keep working it. We hear what you're saying. Please don't ever think we don't. A lot of times, there's things that we can't say. You asked the question on Section 8. legally, I can't tell you there will never be Section 8, but we know that through the negotiations building into because legally I can go to court, I can go to jail for that, right? Because that's a violation of the fair housing. So I can never say that. But through this negotiation, because it's an FPUD, we're working on it, and the developer wants to have a nice development too. They want to have a nice thing. This is a Sidley family who owns it. They're lifelong township folks. They could have gone to Painesville and taken the annexation and got a heck of a deal, probably better than what they're getting here. But they chose to stay. And so part of this was with Section 8, these dollar amounts that they're projecting, and it's going to be written into this preliminary development plan, is going to put it well above a certain dollar amount. So they're targeting a clientele. They're hitting people like me who are 55 plus, then they're hitting young professionals for those apartments. So there's a lot we're working on. Mike, we heard you talk at a prior meeting about the smash of all those townhomes in the back. Well, we were complaining to developer too. You guys presented to us this plan where you're showing 10, 11 freaking houses all smashed together back to back. That violates our code. You can't do that, and we wouldn't allow you to do that. So they went back and they redid their drawing some. Then there was still complaints on that because we didn't like that either. So they came out. So this is what it's really going to look like. So that one picture up on our web page shows that of what it's really going to look like. If you go to my neighborhood, I live in Lake Erie Shores, which is the very north end of the township, and you look at the townhomes in there, and that's a Ryan Home houses. They have 6 of them together, and that's what our zoning code allows. And those, I just saw one yesterday, selling for $225,000. I mean, these aren't cheap little condos. These aren't cheap little townhomes. These are nice places. So they're putting in the effort. We're going to make sure it's nice. We're here to represent you. We hear you, we're listening, and we're continuing to work. So we continue that meeting because we're not ready to say we're good yet. There's still things we want. We can't go in there and tell you everything that we're working on because we're trying to work with them. But we're here for you. We promise.
All right. Lake County Sheriff's Office is not present. Department reports, service?
I have nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Fire?
No report.
Zoning?
I have nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Legal?
Nothing to report.
Administrator?
Nothing.
Fiscal Officer?
I have nothing at this point.
Trustees, I need a motion to request a resolution to authorize participation in the ODOT road salt contract in 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to request a resolution to adopt proposed revision to the schedule of zoning fees to be effective April 5th, 2023, and to be attached to the Painesville Township zoning resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 3 we already addressed. Are we going to executive session for
Yes.
discuss legal?
Yep.
Okay. So I need a motion to convene to executive session to discuss our legal advisor position.
So moved.
Second.
Chairman Chickanetti.
Yay.
Trustee Hillier.
Yay.
Trustee Pond.
Yay. So just no additional business will be held after we come out of executive session. So this is really the end of you guys listening to us for the evening. Do we all need to sign this?
Oh, she said, don't get in conversations. We got to go back. So get back there, please.
Chuck, please sign this for me.
Not engaged. Tell them you cannot engage.
Is that you? Is this me? It's you.
Come on.
Yeah.